Our next guest, ready, Jay? John Keim, ESPN's Commanders reporter. He's a proud husband, father, beagle owner.
Got that beagle.
Yeah. Went to the Ohio State University. We're going to tap in with him about Brian Robinson Jr. John, what's up, man? It's Kyle Draper and Jay here. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Great, man. Great to have you on. Thanks for agreeing to join us. Let's jump right into it. The trade goes down, and I see it's for a 6th-round pick going from the 49ers to the Commanders. Brian Robinson to the 49ers. And looking at your Twitter page, you say resolution. Quote tweeted Schefter and say resolution. Can you explain that? Was there some bad blood? Did Brian want out?
No. It's just more that the situation's over because we knew they had been shopping him. He did not play in the game Monday night against the Bengals. He didn't attend the game. So it was just either are they going to release him or are they going to trade him? So that's it.
John, it seems like the writing was on the wall for BRJ to come out to leave the Commanders. Why did it never seem to be like his team? He'd be the running back number one. I know Austin Eckler came last year, but why was the keys never turned over to Brian?
He didn't produce enough. That's a part of it. That's certainly a part of it. Yeah, I'll just start there because he was an all right back, good enough that you could they had good games with him, but not necessarily the long-term answer. He was going to be a free agent after this season. They drafted a running back in the 7th round, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, whom they like, obviously. They like Eckler. They love how Eckler works. They love Jeremy McNichols, who spent, I think, had a cup of coffee with the Niners. But they like what he adds. He's not a primary back, but they like what he adds. And then another part of it was the improved play of Chris Rodriguez, a third-year back who, looks faster in camp, running with more balance, etc. I don't think any of them are going to be this great player for them. But I think it's the combination of the group. They felt like, okay, they could get what they were getting from Robinson. And then the other part of it is they have a quarterback in Jane Daniels who runs the ball pretty well. And then a guy you guys are familiar with, Deebo Samuel. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think they're going to get Deebo, more than a handful of carries, but he's a threat and he's somebody you can use in the run game. So I think you add it all up. They didn't need that one guy. But I also, like I said, Robinson would have good games and have some games where that was a really good game. And then the next week he'd have 23 yards. Do you know what I mean? So it was like that inconsistency, not all on him. Some of it definitely on the line, but he wasn't a guy that he was just going to create a lot on his own. And I think they needed more of that.
John Keim, ESPN's Commanders reporter, joining us. John, I'm glad you pointed that out because when I see and hear that the trade is going to be made, Brian Robinson Jr., first thing I do is go to Football Reference, and it's like, hold up, this dude's a career 4.1 yards per carry kind of guy.
Right.
That's misleading, though, huh?
No, I don't. I think that's pretty accurate. So he didn't get a lot of yards after contact. Some of that could be because he didn't get a lot of yards before contact.
Oh, shoot.
So where are you? You know what I mean? So are you breaking tackles in the third level or the second? Right? So it's going to make a difference. But I also don't think that he got enough of the yak, and he didn't have the carries of 10 plus yards. He had a decent number of those, but his percentage of carries that game were pretty low. I think it was 86 in the NFL. It was low since he came in the league. So that's why I say he's a fine back. I think it's a good move for the Niners, given what they have with the injury issues. And I think it was fine for the Commanders to give back a 6th-round pick. So I think it was these guys were okay because they have improved depth, and they're okay moving on because of it. I think if they hadn't had the rookie, if Rodriguez hadn't had improved play, Robinson would still be here, and he'd still be a guy that would carry 10 to 15 times a game because you can still win with him. And then for what the Niners need, you have McCaffrey. You don't need him to come and be anything other than, hey, provide some power and provide another look. he'll be fine in that role.
John, I was going to ask that question is if Brian is not a big speed or breakaway guy, because I've looked at his longs over his career, and you're about right. He doesn't have the breakaway. He's only, his long
Right.
for certain seasons are 24, 29, 40 yards. What does Brian do well?
Power. He
Okay.
runs with power. So his third, like in short yardage situations, he was pretty good. And especially if you have a good line up front. Like one of his longest runs last year came on I think it was like a 4th and 1 run, I think it was, that he ran like 40-some yards for a touchdown. So, he is pretty good there. He does run with power. And I think like that's what you'll see. And I think that's what people will like. He is capable of good games. Like he really is. It wouldn't shock me if he goes out and has a couple good games right away. But then again, like here, the trend would be good game and then 20, 23, 35, 60, you know what I mean? So it wasn't all on him, but again, it is partly on him. So, but he will add power. He will definitely add power.
John Keim joining us. Hey, John, when I look at the value that the Niners had to give up for Brian Robinson, a 6th-round pick,
yeah.
And according to the reports, the Commanders are paying most of the salary. Were they hoping to get something better than that? Was there no market for him? That seems to be so cheap and I understand, he's inconsistent and everything like that. Were they hoping to get more though?
No, I don't think they're hoping to. I think they're hoping to get something. And I think there was this. First of all, we know the relationship with Adam Peters, and the organization in San Francisco. So, I think that helped because clearly he's going to give him a good scouting report on him. And for what the Niners need, again, I think it's a good move for them. But as far as the market, they were going to cut him. So it suggests to me that there were definitely more teams involved if you were able to get something like that. Even though you have to pay a little bit for it, you are getting a 6th-round pick, and they needed draft picks. They only had 5 in the next draft, so they needed to add some more. So this helps them. So I think for them to get anything is a good move. And the fact that they had to pay for it, the option is cutting him and getting nothing.
Joined by John Keim, ESPN reporter for the Washington Commanders, insider as well. John, how's B Rob coming out the backfield? How's his hands? I see his targets are somewhere in between the 20s and the 40s as far as passing wise. He's caught 36 as his highest, playing in 15 games. Is he someone that you can depend on out the backfield?
His hands are pretty good, and it's funny because every year somebody will say like, "Yeah, I'm surprised at how good his hands are." So you saw that right away as a rookie, and then the hard part is like incorporating him more into the pass game. He's not going to be your shifty back out of the backfield, but you can get him on some screens. You can get him in those areas, and if you run it well, like he's going to break some tackles on that. So his hands are pretty good. It's just he's not going to be a guy that's going to have a heavy volume of pass catches, but he can help you there.
Hey, John, let's switch gears just a little bit. You mentioned Deebo Samuel. We know him well out here. How much are they asking of him this season? What are they looking for from him this year?
Well, in camp, it was a lot because they had no Terry McLaurin.
Right.
So I do think that they're expecting him to be a lot of what he was in San Francisco, which is that chess piece, that movable guy who can, you see him taking some snaps out of the backfield. You see him on the jet sweeps. You see him lined up here, lined up there, right? So they're going to use him a lot how the Niners did because they used him. He was pretty productive there, right? So he's developed a nice little chemistry with Jaden Daniels. I think that's one thing that's been helped by McLaurin not being on the field is that Daniels has developed a rapport with Deebo. So I think Terry McLaurin, when he comes in, is their number one guy. Noah Brown would be their 3rd receiver, but he's often hurt, and he's hurt right now. So they will count on Deebo to provide, whether it's receiving yards, running yards, whatever it is. They're counting on him to be productive.
John, over the last 24 hours, Jaden Daniels had an interview with Diana Rossini, kind of giving some positive feedback to Terry McLaurin's situation. Let's stay right there. What's the latest and greatest with Terry? I would imagine as we inch closer to the season, he'll be suited up and ready to go no matter what week 1. But as far as contract details, any movement on that?
No, and that's why I kind of laugh when I see James. Like Jaden's not involved. He doesn't know. So there's not a lot of movement there. I think what will help it is that we're getting closer to the season, right? Because like what McLaurin has wanted is not close to what these guys were offering. There's been a big gap.
What does he want, John? What does he want?
So the baseline for it has always been DK Metcalf's deal, which is 33 per year, 60 guaranteed. But then you hear things that it's more than that initially, for sure. And these guys were starting off in the like low to mid 20s. And I think they'll get up to like 27, 28. At this point, I'd be surprised if anything starts with a 3. I was told all along that they wouldn't go there, but we'll see. And it could be a bogus $30 million a year because you have a high back end. But it's just, that's why it's always been there's been a big divide, and part of it goes back to his age. He's going to be 31 when the extension would start. He's been a very good receiver, but he's never been one of the top 5. So his game, I think, will age well. But does that mean you pay him in the mid-30s? I don't know. And nobody else has gotten that at his age. So I think that's the hard part. But one thing is there's 2 things. They absolutely need him, and he finally has a quarterback to play with, and he can help himself by playing with this quarterback, and he is under contract. So they both sides kind of feel like they have leverage. He feels he has leverage because they definitely need him on the field. They feel they have it because he's under contract, and nobody wants to miss game checks.
John Keim joining us. Hey, John, with Jaden Daniels, obviously, tremendous rookie campaign last year. And I feel like there's 2 camps when it comes to him this year. Those that think, he's a top 5 MVP candidate. Washington's ready to take that next step. And then there's another side that says, you know what? He was so great last year. He's going to have a sophomore slump. No way he can be as good. You get to see Jaden up close and personal every day, every week when he's out there on the field. What do you make of, the kind of talent he is, and what kind of season are you expecting from him?
Well, if I had to pick between the 2, I'm picking the first one. But here's the caveat to all of that. One, their schedule is tougher. So you're going to face, like, they play, I think it's 10 games against defenses that finished in the top 11 in scoring last year.
Ooh.
So exactly. So if there's any sort of not a slump, but if a difference, that's going to be a big part of the reason. The other part of it is, we just talked about Terry McLaurin. He's not on the field. So until he is, you don't have your top receiver. And I'm assuming he will be there at the start of the season. But if he's not, then your offense looks different. And then the other part of that is the offensive line, which I think down the road will be good. In training camp, they're starting a rookie. Well, right now it's a rookie right tackle, Josh Connolly. He may or may not start. Their 2 guards have not been on the field, right? One is recovering from a torn ACL. One has missed the last 3 weeks. And Laramie Tunsil is dealing with a couple little things that might impact him early. But the point is they haven't worked together as a group. So how long that takes, all that stuff is going to impact Daniels. However, when you watch him on the practice field, he's accurate. He still has that dynamic ability. He's more of a leader. And I think his processing is as good as it was last year, maybe better. And that was a strength of his last year. So from his own game, I don't see a drop. But you wonder about everything around him initially.
Joined by John Keim, ESPN reporter, Washington Commanders insider. John, the defense, as far as name-wise, Kinlaw, Bobby Wagner, Von Miller, Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey Samuel-Steele, they're loaded when it comes to names. With that being said, spinning off the question that Draper just asked you, what is the goal for this team? Do they really feel, with Jaden Daniels being in the second year and having a great rookie year, that this team can win a Super Bowl?
I think they'll think that when James in his 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, I think every year he's there, they're going to believe that, right? So, I think it'll be interesting on defense because you're right. Like, there are a lot of, if this were 2020, that's a hell of a defense.
That's right.
So I do think that it's better than last year. It has to be a lot better in the 4th quarter than it was a year ago. We'll see. Like in training camp, they looked really good, But was that because the receivers aren't on the field? Like the only receiver that is like a legitimate starting NFL receiver they're really facing was Debo. And he's not your traditional wideout, right? So they're not facing the guys that are being like A.J. Browns or Malik Neighbors because McLaurin's not out there. So were we fooled by anything or not? I do think they'll be better, but to what level? And I think their line will be better. Von Miller has something left. He's not a double-digit sack guy, but I think he can help him as a situational pass rusher. So, but again, will it be durable? So, like, I think there's a lot of questions with that group, though I do think it's better. You do run to, like, a lot of guys over 30 that you just mentioned. Marshawn Lattimore used to be a very good corner. He's missed a lot of games the last 3 years. Can he be durable? That's a big question. So, there's a lot that I think there's optimism with that group. I think they have a lot to prove.
John, my last question, man. I went about 18 minutes with you, 15 minutes with you. And I haven't told you I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. That's my squad. I'm from Philly.
Good team.
Yeah. How legitimate do you think the Commanders are as a threat to my Eagles? I'm looking at the schedule in the league. Give Roger Goodell and them some credit. They know what they're doing with that schedule. Eagles and Commanders, 2 of the last 3 games, they face each other. What do you make of the division and where Washington stacks up against Philly and Dallas and the other teams?
I mean, going into the season, it's the Eagles. Like, I don't know. We had a poll even for ESPN where it's a group poll. Like, somehow they weren't number one. I'm like, how is anybody putting Kansas City ahead of the Eagles? Like, how can you do that? Their roster is really good. It's a terrific organization, and the roster's really good. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, it can't get past that. Now, can these guys close that? Well, of course, because it's the NFL. Weird things happen. Injuries happen, right? Sometimes things just happen in the game that's like, that didn't happen last year, and you can't explain it, but it does, right? I think, people in the Bay Area see the Niners, like, all it takes is a few injuries, and you go from 14 wins in a Super Bowl to 7-10, So that's the kind of thing that would have to happen to the Eagles for them to not win the division, in my opinion. I do think these guys can challenge, but if you go into the season, like, I'd be silly to pick anybody but the Eagles in that division. Cowboys will be interesting with Dak back. I do have concerns about, whether the run game or, some parts of their defense. Issue with Micah. The Giants will be interesting because their defense should be pretty good. I don't know. I'm not ready to jump on the Jackson Dart train, and Russell Wilson is. I think we've seen that song and dance a couple years now to know, like, he's not going to be the answer, but that defense will be really good. So I think these guys should be right there, but you have to have the Eagles as the favorite going in.
Jay, clip that right there. Let's rerun that. John, we appreciate you, man. Check out John Keim on social media, on Twitter, John_Keim, ESPN's Commanders reporter. We appreciate the time, John.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, our guy, John Keim, giving us the lowdown, the insight on Brian Robinson Jr. Solid player, a little inconsistent, but as the backup to CMC, I think that's a good signing, a good move for the San Francisco 49ers. Coming up,